Welcome back to the Resolution Room, where we turn tension into transformation through clarity, connection, and consistency. I'm your host, Dr. Nashay Lowe, and this is a space where we explore what's really underneath the moments that challenge us and how they can lead to something more honest, more human, and more whole. So let's get into it. Welcome back, and for the last time this season, to the Resolution Room. When I first started the show, I didn't know what it would become. I just knew I wanted to have honest conversations, the kind that go beyond theory or strategy, the kind that hold up a mirror to how we really show up when things get hard. I wanted to create a space where we can wrestle with nuance, with complexity, with the things that most people rush past when they're uncomfortable. This season has been that and more. We've heard from educators, comedians, real estate agents, musicians, and thought leaders. On the surface, their worlds couldn't be more different. But underneath, every conversation circled back to the same question. What does it really mean to live and lead with resolution? Not avoidance, not reaction, but alignment. Because conflict isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. The tension that tests what we say we believe. And this season showed us that our greatest transformations often begin in those moments when we stop trying to control the narrative and start listening for what the friction is trying to teach us. Segment 1. Leading when you don't fit the mold. When James Bumpus joined me, we talked about what it means to exist in spaces where you don't see yourself reflected. He reminded us that being the only one in the room isn't just about representation, it's the quiet courage of showing up fully without shrinking to make others comfortable. That conversation made me think about how easily belonging becomes conditional. But James helped me reframe it as, belonging isn't given, it's claimed. Then Dr. Joel Perez offered the leadership mirror to that lesson. He taught us that humility isn't the opposite of confidence, it's the container for it. That in a world obsessed with being right, leadership rooted in listening becomes radical. And maybe that's a deeper link between the two. Whether you're leading a team or standing in a boardroom where you're the only voice of difference, resolution begins when you can hold your identity and your integrity in the same hand. Because clarity isn't about just knowing everything, it's about knowing yourself, especially when the room doesn't. Segment 2. Humor, Humanity, and the Art of Healing. This season also reminded us that conflict doesn't always look heavy. Sometimes it hides in laughter. Comedian Renard Hirsch helped us see humor as more than entertainment, but as emotional in translation. That conversation left me with the idea that comedy isn't about escaping pain, it's proof that we survived it. And that idea reframed everything for me. Because healing doesn't always happen in silence. Sometimes it's the shared laughter we have with someone across the room who we don't know, when we can look at each other, smile and nod, and say, me too. Then Rick Stewart joined us to talk about soul country. Not just as a genre of music, but as a movement of storytelling that bridges identity, geography, and time. He reminded us that storytelling is its own kind of resolution, a way of reconciling who we were with who we're becoming. Together, Renard and Rick taught us that creativity isn't just performance, it's perspective. It's how we transform survival into story and pain into purpose. And that's what conflict gives us. Not always closure, but clarity through creation. Segment 3. Culture as Connection. Lila Raouf took us across continents and contexts, showing how cultural competency isn't about mastering difference, but it's about being mastered by it. She reminded us that competency doesn't exist without curiosity, and that real connection begins where certainty ends. Her words took me back to something Dr. Paul Brown shared with me about education and studying abroad. That teaching in itself is less about transferring knowledge and more about transferring understanding. The idea that you can't build inclusive systems with the willingness to sit in discomfort long enough to hear what's actually being said is at the heart of what international travel is about. Both conversations reminded me that conflict across differences isn't something to manage, it's something to engage. Because connection without challenge is convenience, not community. And maybe that's a challenge for all of us, to stop performing diversity and start practicing curiosity, and to eventually trade competence for humility, the kind that lets us see each other fully, even when we don't agree. Segment 4, the emotional cost of progress. With Michael Gomez, we stepped into the world of real estate and uncovered something deeply human. Behind every contract is a conversation. Behind every transaction is a transition. He showed us that conflict is baked into every process that involves value, emotion, and change. But what keeps things moving forward is not negotiation skill in itself, it's emotional intelligence. Then came Steve Afra, who spoke about the tension between success and alignment. He reminded us that it's easy to chase growth, but far harder to sustain integrity while you do it. That burnout often begins when ambition outpaces purpose. Together, their stories painted a clear truth. We can't build what we don't nurture. And if progress costs us peace, the price is too high. Leadership that endures doesn't come from force. It comes from rhythm, from leaders who know how to pause, reassess, and realign before the mission consumes them. Segment 5, Bigger Lessons, Resolution as a Daily Practice. When I zoom out and look at all of these conversations I've had over this first season, a single thread runs through them: the human desire to live in alignment. Whether it's cultural humility, humor, leadership, or real estate, every guest this season showed us that resolution is not a moment of relief, it's a muscle. It's built through the quiet repetition of returning to what matters, especially when the world tells you to move faster, talk louder, and want more. And maybe that's the final lesson of this season. Resolution isn't about getting back to normal. It's about creating something more honest than what came before. It's about asking ourselves, not how do we win this conflict, but what is this conflict revealing that we need to see? That's the heart of the work I do through Low Insights, helping people translate tension into transformation, because the opposite of conflict isn't peace, it's clarity. And clarity is what allows us to build peace that lasts. So as I ask every guest, I'll ask you too, the listener, the leader, and the learner. What does it mean for you to be truly resolved? Not just in conflict, but in purpose. Because if this season taught us anything, it's that being resolved isn't about certainty. It's about commitment. The willingness to stay present long enough for understanding to emerge. I want to thank you all so much for being here with me, for your time, your curiosity, and your courage to sit in conversations that don't rush to easy answers. If any of these stories have inspired you to build more clarity, connection, and consistency in your own organization and your own lives, please visit lowinsights.com to learn more. And please stay tuned, because next season, we're not just talking about resolution, we're talking about what happens after. What happens when the conflict quiets and it's time to rebuild? Until next time, remember, conflict doesn't end the story. It simply reveals the next chapter that's waiting to be written. As always, thank you for joining me in the Resolution Room. If this conversation moved you, challenged you, or gave you something to carry forward, consider supporting the show. You can explore our wearable wisdom collection in our Mind Shop, where each piece is designed to spark reflection and dialogue. You can also join our growing community for behind-the-scenes conversations, resources, and support of your own journey through tension and transformation. And if you just want to say thank you in a simple way, you can always buy me a coffee. Every gesture helps keep this space going. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, keep building in the quiet, because that's what will carry you forward.